Among all those qualities, there are other qualities like a sense of felicity, sometimes we can say bliss, of perfect attunement with oneself, with others, with the world. I think one of the qualities of that inner flow is some kind of unconditional benevolence. A priori, whoever might come in the field of our attention, whenever we are in that state of pure awareness and unconditional benevolence, will benefit from that. And it is really attuned to our deepest nature. That's why, in a way, that flow has a kind of felicity. Of course, violence does exist. It happens within human nature. It's a kind of coming out of that when we say something that hurts others, when we harm others. So often we say, I was no more myself. I was out of myself, as if we recognize that the state that we would like to be most of the time is a state of benevolence. I mean, if we were doing a seminar and telling you in 24 hours we'll make you 100 times more jealous and angry, who will come? But if we say we'll make you increase your kindness, your good heart, I say, oh, that sounds neat. So in fact, and even, neuroscientists have been working with years with Richard Davidson in Madison. When we study the different types of meditations, it turns out that the one that creates the strongest activation in certain areas of the brain and in certain frequency, like the gamma frequency, is the meditation on altruistic love and compassion. If you look at positive psychology, one of the founders or the pioneer of positive psychology, Barbara Fredrickson, just wrote a wonderful book called Love 2.0, in which she says that love, defined as positive affective resonance, is the supreme of all emotions or all mental states. It is among all the positive affects the one that broadens the most your perspective, that come along with the most other positive emotions. So, and then of course, if you are in that state, it is most likely that your words and your actions will be somehow beneficial to others, perceived by others as something that puts them in a state of confidence, of openness, of trust. It will be good to be with someone who has that kind of benevolence. It's so as the Dalai Lama said that someone who is extremely angry all the time, even dogs run away from that person. So it seems that on a experiential level, so that this kind of warm-heartedness is the best possible thing to be, is the best possible thing to be with others. So it's a win-win situation. Another reason why it is like that, because it is attuned to reality. The pursuit of selfish happiness supposes that we are sort of separate entities, that we could build our happiness within the bubble of self-centeredness, the bubble of the ego. It's kind of stuffing that bubble. And then we think me all day long, and everything is like a storm in a glass of water. Slightest sort of criticism or something that doesn't go exactly what we want. We're always about our feelings. How do I feel? Everything becomes rise like an enemy or potential threat or an object of desire. And that small world is always in turmoil. And then the idea that we could build our happiness within this small entity and say, well, others, I don't mind if they are happy, but it's not my job, is basically at odds with reality, because we are so deeply interconnected and we are not separate entities. So on the experiential level, the pursuit of selfish happiness is a lose-lose situation. We feel miserable and we make everyone's life miserable. Plus it's not attuned to reality, so it doesn't work. That's why the French writer Romain Rolland said, if selfish happiness is the only goal of your life will soon be goalless, because it doesn't work. While the pursuit of happiness through altruism and compassion is a win-win situation, and it works because it reflects the deep interdependence of everyone. You don't wake up in the morning thinking, may I suffer the whole day, and if possible, my whole life. Similarly, if you transport yourself in anyone's mind, even they are as much confused as we are, still, basically, fundamentally, they don't want to suffer. So we have that as the most common part of humanity. And therefore, if I have consideration and I value the fact that I don't want to suffer and I like to flourish, then I should value it in others, other sentient beings, not only human beings, but even animals. No one wants to suffer. So that's for the experiential side. Now, how can we bring that understanding that we may feel, hopefully, deep within, at a bigger level? How altruism could play a role in our time to meet the challenges of our time. It seems that one of these challenges is to sort of reconcile 3 time scales, which is really difficult in our times. We have the fast pace of the economy. Everything goes so fast, and we said that's reality. If we don't deal with that, everything else, nothing will work. There's no happiness, no future, no nothing. Of course, that speed, it's a matter of few years, or the end of the year balance sheet, or the ups and downs of the stock market, from one day to the next, the super high-speed transaction, all that gets speeder and speeder. But then there's also 10 years, 20 years, a career, a family, a lifetime. And what matters? 2 things. The quality of every moment that passes by, the flow. And also, how do we look over a larger span of time? Was it worth living? How could I see the next few years as something that I have a sense of direction? Like I'm traveling the mountains in the Himalayas, and there's ups and downs. Sometimes it's beautiful, fantastic landscapes. Sometimes there's hail and rain. But if I have a goal, every step is a joy in form of effort. Well, if I'm lost, if I have no direction, I sit there in despair. I don't know where to go. Even I make few more steps, I don't know if they take me further away from my goal. Here is someone who is a Chinese person who lost his leg when he was 5. He's taking care of so many people, including his ailing father. And look at the joy of taking care of others. Cooperation, the joy of cooperating. Michael was speaking about the joy of flow, of being together among hunter-gatherers. Cooperation is a highly rewarding sort of activity. We work together. It's a joy to work together. It's like a feast. And animals do so well. And then, of course, the struggle for life, the survival of the fittest. But now the new sort of development in evolution theory, like the super cooperators of Martin Novak from Harvard, clearly show that cooperation has been a factor of increasing complexity in evolution that was much more creative than competition. Competition exists, of course, but cooperation is so much more productive of new creativity and complexity. And also the bonds of the quality of human relationship is perhaps the number 1 factor, according to a recent study of the OCDE, much before income. The quality of human relations is what they said people have answered to be the most determinant factor of their level of happiness, and not only for human beings. Now, here are 2 centuries from Japan. There's a place in Japan where there's the most centenaries in the world. Well, they all say it's because we live together from birth to death. Everyone is together, we enjoy together. This is what makes us special. So high social support, which is also linked with empathy, with altruism, is linked with higher mental health, more longevity, immunity, less heart disease, less substance abuse, less dementia. So now, is it true that we are all selfish? Well, of course, there are sort of simulated altruism. If you do something with having something in mind that you will get more in return, or if you just do to show a good image of yourself, or if you see someone suffering and you can stand seeing them suffer, you feel empathic distress and you don't really care for the person, but you just want to relieve your feeling so bad, that's not real altruism. And then, there have been a school of people saying that you could always find a selfish motivation behind any act that looks altruistic. Well, that's his armchair science. There's never any study, or whether some psychology or social study, that have shown that. Rather the opposite. Daniel Batson spent 30 years doing all kinds of experiments to show that There's always a number of people, no matter what the situation are, that behave in altruistic ways. I have no time today. I did that for 6 hours yesterday. It's more difficult to do it in a few minutes. But it's really shown in the lab, not just guessing people's intention and so forth. So now there is some people say, well, you know, when people do something for others, they say, oh, I feel so good to have done that for others. So I'd say, oh, the warm glow. You did that because you feel good. So it's selfish. My friend Daniel Batson spent her whole life putting people in the lab in very complex situations. And of course, we have sometimes selfish and some people more than others. But he found that systematically, no matter what, there's a significant number of people who do behave altruistically no matter what. You know, if you see someone deeply wounded, great suffering, you might just help out of empathic distress. You can't stand it, so it's better to help than keep on looking at that person. So he tested all that, and in the end he said, clearly people can be altruistic, so that's good news. And he even says further, we should look at the banality of goodness. You know, look at here. When we come out, we're not going to say, that's so nice. There was no fist fight while those monks were speaking about altruism. No, we expect that, isn't it? If there was a fist fight, we will speak of that for months. So the banality of goodness is something that doesn't attract your attention, but it exists. Now, look at this. Okay. So some psychologists said, when I tell them I run 140 humanitarian projects in the Himalayas, that gives me so much joy. They say, oh, I see, you work for the warm glow. This is not altruistic, you just feel good. You think this guy, when he jumped in front of the train, he thought, I'm going to feel so good when this is over. But that's not the end of it. They say, well, but when you interviewed him, he said, I had no choice. I had to jump, of course. So he had no choice. Automatic behavior is neither selfish nor altruistic. Look at this guy. He's not thinking, you know, for half an hour, should I give my hand or not give my hand? There's a choice, but the choice is so obvious that he does it. And also not only... So he has a choice, you know. It's costly for him to keep his friend up. And there are choices that last much longer. Is the father André Trogme and his wife, during the Second World War, they saved 3,500 Jewish families with the whole village. They never closed their door to anyone who sought refuge. That was a big choice. They risked all their life, their family life, and they did it. So it's better to think that goodness leaves us gasping, for we refuse to recognize it as a natural human attribute. So off we go on long search for hidden motivation. You know, scratch and altruism, and the selfish will bleed, something like that. Some extraordinary explanation for such peculiar behavior. You know, he's a saint, she's a saint, but look at human nature. The bad thing will come up for sure. Instead of attempting to distance ourselves politely from them, while at the same time lauding their deeds, wouldn't it be better to rediscover the altruistic potential within us? Let's not search for mysterious explanation of goodness in others, but rather discover the mystery of goodness in ourselves. So that's what we should do. Rediscover in ourselves, express it outside, and be confident that that's the way we can live our life. So empathy, of course. Empathy is not altruism. Empathy is the trigger, the affective resonance, or the cognitive putting yourself in the place of others that alerts you that person is suffering or that person is joyful. And then, if you feel that, naturally, if you have consideration and if you value others, you'll do something. So empathy alone, if it's just left on its own, if you keep on resonating with suffering, can lead to burnout. And the study we did with Tanya Singer shows that if we just do empathy all the time, it's burnout very soon. It's like an electric pump that runs without water, it burns. You need a bigger sphere of altruistic love or human warmth to sort of remedy that as an antidote to burnout. So then people will feel more, being taken care of. There is a sense of warmth that you feel also. It comes from maternal love, but it can be extended to others, and it's also across species. And so there's a mother tiger in Calcutta Zoo with some adopted piglets. And then this consolation that we give to others, and not only among humans again. So then, can we cultivate that at the individual level? Well, 2,500 years of contemplative history says yes. Meditation, cultivating again and again benevolence, does change yourself. Those are great Tibetan masters with whom I live for 40 years. And then His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who now decided that maybe the collaboration with science will help to serve society better, to bridge this experience of contemplative 2,000 years with modern science. So is Richie Davidson here, one of the great neuroscientists with whom I work for so many years. And then comes going to the lab, studying the effect of meditation, of different types of meditation, with each of them has a different signature in the brain. This was the fMRI machine, EEG, all have different functions. This is after 2.5 hours on MRI machine at Madison, so everyone is relieved that I survived. And now very briefly, you can see here are novice meditators who only did for 1 week. When they engage in compassion meditation, nothing happens. And when they rest, nothing happens either. The meditators, when they are at rest, nothing happens. When they engage in compassion meditation, there's a huge peak of activity in the gamma frequency. So then if you look at the brain, similarly, those are meditators in meditation at rest, and in novices, nothing happened at rest, nothing happened in meditation, that's normal. They didn't train. But now, if you look not at people who did 50,000 years, but people who did 4 weeks, 20 minutes a day, you can already see a structural change in some areas of the brain that deal with assimilating novelty and not in the control group. So it's really anyone who train can do that. And even 2 weeks now can increase your prosocial behavior. Even children, 4 or 5 years old, there's a program in Madison with kindness and mindfulness that give extraordinary result after 8 weeks, increase of prosocial behavior. And then the stickers test, you ask them to give stickers to their best friend, their least favorite child, an unknown child, and a sick child. And before and after, and before they give to everything to their best friend, after, there's no more discrimination. They give as much to their best friend and their least favorite child. We do that in India. We have 25,000 kids in the school that we built, and it has very wonderful results. Now, we can develop altruism at individual level. How we do that now? What is the point of junction between personal change and societal change? Where it has to come through the evolution of cultures. That is faster than genes. That's one of the wonderful things is culture can change faster. It's cumulative from generation to generation. Just a handful of people made the Declaration of Universal Human Rights. A handful of people in the 18th century managed to abolish slavery. So culture can change. They shape individuals. Individual change, neuroplasticity, epigenetics. They also change against the institution. And they are mutually fashioning each other like two blades of a knife, sharpening each other. So it's our responsibility at the individual level to change, but it's also how we will change our institution. We can go to a more altruistic society, and that's what we need. It's no more a luxury, it's a complete necessity. So hail to the revolution of altruism. Thank you very much.